Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Pham, and I'm the director of the Africa Center here at the Atlantic Council. On behalf of the Atlantic Council's chairman, Governor John Huntsman, its president, Fred Kemp, and our board of directors, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you, those here present at the Council in Washington, and those joining us around the globe, especially those in Africa, through the webcast of this event. This event to update us on security in Nigeria and the ongoing campaign against Boko Haram. I especially want to acknowledge the presence of many friends in the room, especially members of the Council, as well as representatives of the diplomatic corps, especially from the Embassy of Nigeria. Before formally introducing our distinguished guests, permit me to say a word about the Atlantic Council's Africa Center. The Africa Center was established in 2009 within the Atlantic Council, and I would be remiss if I didn't note that President Goodluck Jonathan spoke at the center's formal inauguration a year later. With a mission to help transform U.S. and European policy approaches to Africa by emphasizing the building of strong geopolitical partnerships with African states and strengthening economic growth and prosperity on the continent. The center seeks to engage and inform both policymakers and the general public of the strategic importance of Africa, both globally and for American and European interests in particular, through programs and publications, as well as a robust media presence. Within the context of the Atlantic Council's half-century of work to promote constructive U.S. leadership and engagement in international affairs, based on the central role of the Atlantic community in meeting international challenges, the Center supports and collaborates with the public and private sectors in forging practical solutions to challenges and opportunities in Africa. It's in the spirit of this mandate that I'm pleased we're able to host this particular discussion. Just a little over 6 months ago, during the historic U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, the largest event any U.S. president has held with African heads of state and government, we had the privilege of organizing 11 high-level side events with presidents, cabinet ministers, business leaders, and representatives of civil society. As we celebrate the strengthening of ties between the United States and one of the world's most dynamic and fastest growing regions. As I've argued repeatedly, the story of Africa is increasingly one of buoyant prospects. However, at the same time, there are very real security, humanitarian, and developmental challenges that prevent countries and regions from fully sharing in the burgeoning opportunities, challenges which must be confronted and which the United States has a stake in helping to tackle. Among these are certainly the tragic violence and upheaval brought upon the continent's most populous country, its biggest economy, by a brutal group of violent extremists taking false refuge under the banner of Islam. The threat posed by Boko Haram is one that I've worked to focus attention on for a number of years, long before it became a fitting subject for social media dilettantes and talking heads. In 2011, along with the Africa Center Senior Fellow Ricardo René Laramont, I had the privilege of testifying at the first ever congressional hearing on the terrorist group. At that time, Boko Haram was considered so obscure that all the participants at the event, that hearing, held in conjunction with the release of a bipartisan report by the House of Representatives Committee on Homeland Security Subcommittee on Intelligence and Counterterrorism, could have been convened in the proverbial broom closet. Sadly, our analysis proved prescient, and rather than fading away, Boko Haram today poses an even larger menace to Nigeria and its people, their neighbors, and indeed the international community as a whole, a fact underscored by the Pledge of Allegiance offered this past weekend by Boko Haram's Abu Bakr Shekau to the self-proclaimed Caliph of the so-called Islamic State. Fortunately, we have also seen a heightened collaboration between Nigeria and its neighbors, as well as the international community, resulting in an increased operational tempo in recent weeks, which appears to have pushed back the militants, liberating a number of towns and local government areas. Our speakers, of course, will address this. This event was organized before the events of recent days, so has shifted somewhat. Understandably, the Chief of the Defense Staff has had operational responsibilities that preclude his ability to be with us as planned. However, we're very fortunate and indeed honored to have two distinguished guests who have expressly come to give us this briefing. Ambassador Ayodele Oke is Director General of Nigeria's National Intelligence Agency, having been appointed to that position by President Goodluck Jonathan in 2013 after a career in the diplomatic service of his country, including posts in Africa, Asia, and Europe. Rear Admiral Gabriel Okoi is Chief of Defense Intelligence of Nigeria. A graduate of the Nigerian Military School and the Nigerian Defense Academy, he previously served, among other military assignments, as Deputy Defense Attaché at the Nigerian Embassy here in Washington, Chief of Staff Officer of the Logistics Command, Deputy Commandant of the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Flag Officer of the Logistics Command, and Director of Planning at Defense Headquarters. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Ambassador Okoi and Admiral Okoi. And Mr. Ambassador, the floor is yours, please.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here, and let me quickly say to our host that Oke and Okoi, they sound so similar. So we can understand that if you have difficulties making a distinction between the two of us. We are very glad to be here. We indeed are grateful that we have the opportunity to interact with you, basically on the things that we have been doing, but essentially to seek your understanding of certain challenges which Nigeria is currently facing. And indeed, to let you into certain things which goes beyond the media headlines that most of you have relied in terms of making your analysis. The aim of this presentation is to assess the current security situation in Nigeria with regards to the forthcoming general elections on the 28th of March and 11th April 2015. And let me say right at the outset that those elections will take place, and that the 29th of May 2015, which is the date of the inauguration of the new government, remains sacrosanct. Therefore, we shall be looking at a review of the current situation in Nigeria, review of current military operations in Northeast, and assessment of the situation. My colleague, Rear Admiral Okoi, will also let you into basics, details on the field, how we've moved in the last 3 weeks. As you're all aware, the conduct of general elections in Nigeria was slated for 14th February 2015 for presidential and National Assembly elections, and 28th February for governorship and State House Assembly elections. The Independent National Elections Commission, INEC, and all stakeholders continued with preparations to actualizing these dates. Election electioneering were ongoing with some incidents of violence recorded across the country and anxiety amongst populace, thereby portraying insecurity for the conduct of elections. Indeed, Boko Haram insurgency had also assumed unprecedented dimension, rendering the Northeast unprepared for the conduct of peaceful and credible elections. Armed attacks, IED explosions in most parts of Northeast were recorded, while Boko Haram sect was occupying 14 local governments, 10 in Borno State, 2 each in Adamawa and Yobe states. My colleague will show to you the geographical exactment of the kind of things that we have been discussing. So you have an idea of what is Yobe, what is Adamawa, and what is Borno states. It was, to all intents and purposes, a virtual state of war. Contemporaneously, INEC was having challenges with regard to the distribution of permanent voter cards, PVCs, which stood at 65% collection a week to the election. This situation was not helped by the fact that there was growing public perception that PVCs were unevenly distributed across the country, while another important electoral tool, the card reader machines, were not fully yet tested and deployed. In addition, there were concerns that essential ad hoc personnel have yet to receive the required training. Consequently, and in order to guarantee a secure and peaceful elections, INEC, after robust consultations with key stakeholders, deferred elections by 6 weeks in accordance with constitutional provisions. The Nigerian Constitution and Electoral Law makes clear that elections should take place 150 days before inauguration date or 30 days before inauguration date. Therefore, the shift itself was still within the constitutional provisions as provided for by the law. It is perhaps interesting to reiterate that in the run-up to the elections, as we are doing all of this, Boko Haram threatened to disrupt the polls because of its strong aversion to constitutional order and its strident opposition to democracy, which it described as a corrupt Western concept. Since the postponement of elections, the military have been regaining territories from Boko Haram. Internally displaced persons, IDPs, have been returning to their homes. Businesses are picking up, and government presence is gradually being reestablished in the affected areas. In essence, normalcy is being restored in the northern part of Nigeria. Also, there is considerable improvement in INEC preparation for the elections. Most election materials have been distributed to the states. More PVCs have been distributed. Indeed, as of last week, the collection rate is now slightly over 80%, just in less than 3 weeks. A week before the election, it was just barely 65% collection. And more also, we now have the card reader machines have now been deployed to the states. Indeed, only last weekend, a sample testing of the document took place in 12 states of the Federation. In all, there is now a greater public confidence in the electoral process as a result of these tangible developments. I should also try to mention that when the election was postponed, the NDI and the IRI, who were both on ground, issued a joint statement which corroborated and really gave fuller explanations as to the reason why INEC took the decision it took. I think the statements you can access on their websites. Review of current situation in Nigeria. The situation in Nigeria can be described to be relatively satisfactory, despite sundry criminal activities such as kidnapping, armed robbery, pipeline vandalism, and infrastructural attacks, all in the southern part of Nigeria, the area where we all refer to as Niger Delta. Of course, this has also been compounded by the insurgency in Northeast, perpetrated by Boko Haram, and incessant communal challenges and armed robbery in Northwest, as well as North Central zones where you have this constant irritation and fights between cattle herdsmen and farmers. With the commencement of electionary campaigns, incidents of political violence, sometimes resulting in deaths, with disturbing regularity, have occurred in some parts of the country. In order to stem the occurrences of these threats, the military responded with limited operations in aid of civil authority. Such interventions include the Joint Task Force in Niger Delta, primarily aimed at combating pipeline vandalism, illegal bunkering, and all forms of militancy in the creeks. Joint military and police operations in most states of the Federation confronted armed robbery, cultism, infrastructural vandalism, kidnapping, and other sundry criminal activities. In areas noted for communal clashes, military standby forces were deployed to quickly intervene and prevent escalation, where situations tended to stretch the police. Equally, police and other relevant security agencies promptly dealt with incidents of electoral violence and encouraged political stakeholders to enter into non-violence agreements. There is no quick fix to conflicts. Therefore, multi-stakeholder initiatives are being promoted and nurtured. To this end, senior citizens, traditional rulers, and religious leaders have been mobilized to engage relevant stakeholders against violence, thus complementing government efforts. The resultant outcome of these measures is that relative security and calmness and stability is currently prevailing in most parts of Nigeria, as opposed to the restiveness that enveloped the political space a few weeks ago. With regard to the security situation in the Northeast, the last 6 months has been fluid, due mainly to Boko Haram attacks in vulnerable communities. This has resulted in the destruction of lives and property, disruption of economic activities, and the displacement of persons within and outside Nigeria. In September 2014, Boko Haram declared an Islamic caliphate in parts of northeast of Nigeria, about the size of Belgium. The sect enforced strict Sharia laws and engaged in brutality and forceful conscription of youths, as well as destruction of critical national infrastructure, such as bridges, communication masts, schools in areas under its control. There were therefore no surprises when recently Boko Haram eventually pledged allegiance to ISIS in its ideological quest to secure a global terror franchise. To be sure, Boko Haram's bid to forge an alliance with the Islamic State will afford the sect a propaganda boost for now, but in the long term, it could further globalize the conflict that is currently restricted to Nigeria and its neighbors. By pledging allegiance to ISIS, Boko Haram has signposted its intentions to engage in even more gruesome tactics if it wins the requested support. More importantly, Boko Haram could be targeting financial assistance from IS, which probably is the wealthiest extremist group in the world today. Nonetheless, the security situation in Nigeria is gradually improving with renewed military operations. Some settlements have been recaptured, with a number of internally displaced persons returning to their homes. Economic activities are picking up with increased government presence. Meanwhile, military operations to consolidate security and win the hearts and minds of the civil populace in recaptured areas have continued with renewed vigor, while sustained efforts to free the remaining areas are currently ongoing. My colleague will give us an update on the areas, even as of 2 days ago, activities of our military in the Northeast. And I should also add that as we speak, the INEC has continued its activities in these areas that have been recaptured rather. Since the commencement of Boko Haram insurgency, Nigeria has adopted a multidimensional approach to deal with the threat. These approaches include initiatives such as creating platforms for national dialogue under the aegis of the Presidential Committee on Dialogue and Peaceful Resolution of Security Challenges in the Northeast, introduction of palliatives like the Presidential Initiative in the Northeast, the Victim Support Fund, which is driven by the private sector, and Safe School Initiative, which is also spearheaded by the former British Prime Minister, Gordon Brown. We also have, I just given a copy of our CVE program, a comprehensive national counterterrorism strategy focusing on dealing with countering violent extremism has been developed and adopted by government. A copy of the document I just handed to the Atlantic Council. So the federal government has also reviewed existing structures in terms of dealing with counterterrorism through legislations, which are also ongoing. But the last one was in 2012 when the National Assembly passed the anti-terrorism law. In addition to this, military operations by Nigerian troops in collaboration with Chad, Cameroon, Niger Republic, and Benin are being conducted to decimate the Boko Haram capabilities and reduce influence in the Northeast. In all, the military is mindful of the need to ensure minimal collateral damage in the conduct of operations while uprooting insurgents out of the civilian populated areas. What needs to be understood is that the way in which Boko Haram has started in northeast part of Nigeria, and because of the preponderance of Boko Haram having Kanuri stock, who are both in Cameroon, Niger, and Chad, and Nigeria, the event became something which was impossible for one country to deal with. Terrorists do not respect national boundaries, and therefore it became incumbent on us to also ensure that we engage our neighbors in trying to deal with the menace. And therefore, under the aegis of the Chad Basin Commission and with the assistance of the African Union, we've developed a concept of operations, which is going to be presented to the UN in the next few days, in a way of establishing the multinational joint task force of about 8,700 troops, which will be the main force that will now contain Boko Haram after the current activities of our Nigerian military. Because we believe that once we're able to dislodge Boko Haram from all these areas, there will still be the need to have in place a international force that will stabilize the environment for the next 1 year. We expect that with the help of our partners, the US, France, UK, and the EU, we'll be able to put that in place and ensure that there is no recrudescence of terrorism after we must have dislodged Boko Haram in the next few weeks. In operational terms, the 3rd Division of the Nigerian Army are conducting operations in Adamawa and Yobe states, while the 7th Division and troops from contiguous countries, Chad, Cameroon, and Niger Republic, are also conducting the same similar operations to ensure that we box in Boko Haram activities. I will just give a brief of what has happened between when the election was postponed 3 weeks ago and where we are at the current moment. And I will give a graphic demonstration of that. My colleague will show the slides later, but I will just go state by state. In Adamawa State, the 3rd Division, in conjunction with other security agencies, have liberated the entire Michika local government and substantial parts of Madagali local government. As a consequence, several IDPs have returned to their communities, while National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has continued on a regular basis to supply needed relief materials to the returnees so that they can go back to their normal lives. And this is where the initiative which I mentioned earlier, the Victim Support Fund, which has been put together by the federal government and the private sector, we set in a way as to assist the populace to either build their houses and have some money, some funds with which to carry on their normal existence. But as it is, normal social activities have been restored in Adamawa State. In fact, we can say now authoritatively that Adamawa State is completely now out of the control of Boko Haram. There's no part of Adamawa State now that is under Boko Haram, whereas 3 weeks ago, we were talking of Boko Haram still having a presence in Adamawa State. In Yobe State, the 3rd Division, supported by security agencies again, have regained the control of 2 local governments, the only 2 local governments that were under Boko Haram in Yobe State. That is Gujba and Gulani, either to controlled by the Boko Haram. IDPs have also started to return to their homes, with the NEMA doing its work and providing assistance and needed relief to ensure that they pick up their lives. Indeed, about 158 abducted persons, comprising 62 women and 96 children, regained their freedom from insurgents in Katako and Gujba local government on 19th of February, after it was reclaimed by federal forces. Although there are intermittent IED attacks, particularly in Potiskum, which is the capital of Yobe State, security agencies are putting in place all measures to check this threat. But in all of this, both in Adamawa and Yobe states, electionary campaign is ongoing, and INEC has been conducting its activities in preparation for the election. In Borno State, prior to 7th February, Boko Haram had under its control 10 local governments of the 27 local governments in Borno State: Abadan, Askira Uba, Bama, Dikwa, Goza, Kalabalgi, Kukawa, Marte, Moba, Ngala. My colleague, while showing this, in his presentation, will show you these areas, so you see exactly the local governments we are talking about that were formerly under Boko Haram and are now being captured by the federal forces. However, following conclusion of bilateral military agreements with Cameroon, Chad, and Niger, simultaneous operations have commenced. and have led to the recapture of 6 of the 10 local governments. In fact, only 2 days ago, the J forces also reclaimed another town. That's Damasak, just on Monday. Now, the local governments which are now been taken over by the federal forces are Abadan, Dikwa, Kalabalge, Kukawa, Mate, and Ngala. Although Boko Haram engages in IED, intermittent IED explosions, particularly in Maiduguri, the security situation in Borno State has improved tremendously, while social activities have also increased across the state. There are plans to recapture the 4 remaining local governments, Askira, Uba, Bama, Goza, and Moba, all leading to Sambisa Forest. So as we speak, INEC has also increased its activities in Borno State. And at the moment, the collection of PVC cards stands about almost 69% of the electorate. What does this all tell us? It tells us that prior to the postponement of election on 7th of February 2015, the situation that we have as of today has improved tremendously. There are also ongoing, like I said, ongoing military operations to ensure that the entire state, before the elections on 28th of March, will have been totally liberated from Boko Haram. There are ongoing military operations to ensure that remaining local governments are also secured before the end of the 6-week extension that has been granted. Generally, we also can see that the general level of anxiety over possible violence that characterized the period before elections has been reduced considerably. This is because INEC has within this period also resolved the issues that will have disenfranchised a large portion of the electorate. Additionally, peace accords are being signed across the country at the state levels, all with the view to ensuring that political gladiators tell their supporters to eschew violence and ensure that we have credible polls. Based on the aforementioned measures, it is expected that security situation will continue to improve, thereby enhancing the confidence of the general populace in the prospects of conducting violence-free, credible elections in Nigeria in the next 3 weeks. Before the postponement of the elections, as we all know, the situation was very, very hazy, thereby creating a lot of apprehension in the minds of the electorate and some members of the international community. The postponement has provided opportunity for engendering a more secure environment in the Northeast and other parts of Nigeria. It has also afforded INEC more time to prepare, and it processed those palpable tensions that gripped the country in the lead up to the 14th February elections as originally planned. As we stand, we can say that the people are now very much confident of the prospects of INEC conducting peaceful, credible elections that meet international standards. We are very confident that come March 28, 2013, and subsequently on the 11th of April, elections will not only hold in Nigeria, it will be peaceful, and indeed, it will be credible. I thank you for listening. Thank you.
Ambassador, and now I call upon your colleague, the Chief of Defense Intelligence of Nigeria, Rear Admiral Okoi. The laser.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to make any or read any paper because what my colleague has read is exactly what I have. What I intend doing this morning is to maybe, first of all, start with the genesis of these problems, that is from the military aspect of it. Then later, tell you how we went into bilateral military agreement with our neighbors, and then show you what happened or the situation before election was postponed and where we are presently. I can remember vividly when I resumed office in February last year, the DG and I organized a seminar calling our neighbors for us to discuss Boko Haram. And all of them came up and said Boko Haram is a Nigerian problem. I can remember a colleague who said something that if your house is burning and you call your neighbors to come and help you put out that fire, and they don't do it, you should be ready for something. The same thing, if your house is burning and you don't call on them and they do nothing, they should also watch out for something. Nigeria has boundary with Chad and Niger on the Lake Chad area. And for some years now, the Lake Chad Basin community was formed. Because of the miscreants within that area, there was a multinational joint task force that was formed comprising these three countries. And when Boko Haram came up, we felt since we have borders with Cameroon, Cameroon should come on board. We tried everything possible to call Cameroon on board. Cameroon refused. Rather, they were more comfortable carrying out simultaneous operations from their own side. They were still insisting it was a Nigerian problem. No problems. But what happened later? Towards the tail end of last year, Boko Haram started attacking Cameroon. Cameroon had to move its forces to the far north of their country to counter Boko Haram activities. We tried all this time around, we tried to do something to make sure that we face Boko Haram. But what has happened? I don't know. Our friends, I would say, disappointed us. We could not get the arms we needed, nor could we get the ammunition. There was no presence or there was no recognition of Boko Haram or terrorism being carried out in Nigeria until the Chibok girls were abducted. And when that happened, everybody came to Nigeria to give one assistance or promising to give one assistance or the other. I cannot stand here and say we've not gotten anything from them, because at least I'm hosting them in my facility. We talk every Friday, so I can say we are getting something from them, but it's not tangible, I will say that. That notwithstanding, we were able to get some friends who have helped us to get some things going. And that's why we are winning the war now. We went into bilateral agreements with Chad. And our bilateral agreement with Chad, military bilateral agreement with Chad, is that they will cross over to Nigeria, to our territory. And we'll also cross over, if it's necessary, we'll cross over. But only on the condition that we are informed when they are making that move. As of today, we have liaison officers from Chad in Nigeria, the same thing, Nigerian liaison officers in Chad. Chad has also bilateral agreement with Niger. They also have with Cameroon. In fact, before we went into that agreement with Chad, Chad has already moved to Cameroon to help them out of their problems. And when we went to Chad and this agreement was signed, because we don't have a land boundary with Chad, Chad has to go in through Cameroon and also through Niger. You must have read in the papers or seen through TVs how Chadian forces have entered Nigeria or helped capture some towns. Yes, that's true. But these are the agreements we've had with our neighbors. Now, what was the situation before election was postponed? Like my colleague has said, 14 local governments were under the control of Boko Haram. 10 in Borno, 2 in Yobe, and 2 in Adamawa. Maybe let me just go through the slides and see. If you look here, painted red are all the areas, the 10 local governments taken over by Boko Haram before the election was postponed. The local governments, just like my colleague has said, are Bama, Kalabage, Ngala, Dikwa, Abadan, Kukua, Mate, Mopa, Askiriuba, and Goza. Next slide. Okay. Under Adamawa, we had Michika and Madagali local government areas. And in Yobe State, we have Gujba and Gulani local governments. Just to go through. My colleague has said all this. Adamawa State, for example, my colleague has said, we've taken over Michika and Madagali. So Adamawa, our state is free of Boko Haram for now. But I'll make a comment later about sleeper cells. Borno State, Gujba and Gulani were taken over last week. So we are free of Boko Haram. Borno State. Oh, sorry about it. The ones in red are the ones that Boko Haram are still controlling. That is Moba, Bama, Goza, and Askiriuba. The rest, Abadan, Kukua, Mate, Ngala, Dikwa, and Kalabage have been taken over within the past 3 weeks. Now, you've seen this. When you look at it, compare what happened before election was postponed and what is the current situation. One thing I want to warn here is that if you have gone through terrorism acts or terrorism studies, you discover that sleeper cells are never easy to do away with. Sleeper cells are never easy to do away with. We will win this war quite all right. But we are ready to face the sleeper cells after this. Because it's through the sleeper cells, now you are seeing IED bombs here and there, using girls that have been radicalized to bomb certain areas. One happened just yesterday in Maiduguri. They will continue to happen. So please, that is where we are. I feel, I'm very, very hopeful that we shall win this war. Before March 28th, I think this operation will almost be completely finished with. And then we'll sit back and see how we'll face the sleeper cells and allow the elections to take place. I was in the meeting where, Council of State meeting, when the INEC chairman was called to explain the situation of things. And after he has explained, I asked one question. All the people who were there, past head of state and all the rest, I asked them, is there any of you that would send his child to Borno State to conduct elections? And I think at that time, nobody would do that. And INEC was ready to use coppers to do that. And I remember in 2011, I was in Kaduna. How many coppers died in Bauchi? The coppers serving under me, I was the deputy commandant in Jaji. I had to carry out an operation that night to rescue them from where they were abducted. So I don't think it was possible 3 weeks ago for us to conduct any elections. I'm not a politician, but I'm just talking from the security aspect of it. So I leave that to you to judge. Thank you very much. Yes, Nancy. How are you, sir? Yes.
Admiral, Ambassador. Ambassador. Please. Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you, Admiral, for your presentations. And apologies for the technical glitches, but I think it was well worth the effort and the little delay to see what you've illustrated there. And thank you again, all of you, for joining us. I also want to acknowledge just joining us, His Excellency Adefuye, the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria here in Washington. Let me ask one question before throwing it out, since both of you work in intelligence. There's been a lot of questions about, and there are a lot of polemics and some controversy in the media about the level of U.S. cooperation and assistance. And Admiral, you voiced some disappointment on also, very diplomatically put, but of people you expected to have as allies who were not always with you. How would you grade, or what can you say about the intelligence aspect of our bilateral relations, speaking as an American, with Nigeria, especially in your fight against terrorism?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. First, let me say that when we talk of intelligence, most of the issues that we are discussing are not issues which we can all complain to say this is what we are discussing. But let me put this in the context. In May last year, in Paris, there was a summit of Nigeria, France, the UK, and our neighbors, called by President Francois Hollande. And at that meeting, one of the things that came out was that there was the need for all the countries and our strategic partners to create an intelligence pool where we can all share intelligence real time in prosecuting this insurgency. And following from that, we now have what we describe as Regional Intelligence Fusion Unit, based in Abuja, comprising Nigeria and our neighbors, as well as France, UK, and United States. I should say that RIFU is working well in terms of intelligence cooperation between, at the level of RIFU. It's working well to the extent that we're also building confidence, because intelligence work requires trust and confidence. So we've crossed that line. As head of intelligence in Nigeria, I can tell you that we are working very well, and proudly so, with our friends from the US and from Europe as regards that institution. And more than that, there's now a realization that in intelligence parlance, when we were growing up, we were trained on the need to know. But the paradigm of today, with the kind of challenges we are facing today, the need to know is yielding to the need to share. And that is what is happening now with under the aegis of this Regional Intelligence Fusion Unit. So I would say that most of the things that we are doing are not meant for the public, but as professionals, I can confirm that we are working well together.
Thank you. And Admiral, if I may, since you've previous to your current intelligence posting, you served in logistics, and that brings up of course, the question of another little bit of a contretemps we've had recently, which is with the bilateral mill-to-mill relationship with training, as well as with foreign military equipment sales. Any comments on how the state of U.S.-Nigeria relations in that regard?
Thank you very much. I think the issue is this. Just like my colleague has said, what we really wanted was real-time intelligence, because you have all it takes to give us real-time intelligence. If, for example, Sambisa, that is known by everybody as the real den for the terrorist, you use your ISR to detect things in Sambisa, you should tell us beforehand, not when they have moved out of Sambisa. We get the information sometimes late. That's the problem I have. I've discussed with them, but you know, when this human rights is dealing with our operations very well, negatively, I will put it that way. You talk about logistics. Yes, we are having training from the Americans Up to yesterday, they're still offering us training slots here and there. But I know the issue you talked about, or the issue, the burning issue, has to do with them training one battalion. You want to train a battalion of men to go and counter terrorism. And you want a nation that does not have what it takes to provide all the platforms. It's not possible. You want to train, but you don't want us to buy equipment from you. How do we compromise that? It's practically impossible. So that's where we were. We could not meet up with the equipment that they wanted, so the training could not hold. And that's what happened. See, the US is doing its best, but the Leahy Law, or whatever they call it, is what I think is hindering our operations or our cooperations. So whatever they can do, I don't know. For us, see, terrorism is, we are all facing the same thing. American investment in Nigeria is going down, or will go down if terrorism continues to exist. So it's either you forget about your investment in Nigeria and leave us alone to deal with our case, or you want to protect your investment in Nigeria and help us out of our current situation. US is doing its best, I'll tell you, but the best is not good enough. That's all I can say.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Admiral, for your great candor. Over here.
Thank you very much. And it was very good to hear that the elections are definitely going to go forward as scheduled. And the territory that has been recaptured from Boko Haram, that indeed is extremely impressive. In northeastern Nigeria, if I understand it correctly, at any given time, there are Chadian, Nigerian, and possibly even Cameroonian troops operating. What kind of centralized coordination process exists?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. What we've done is this. Because Chad came in from Niger, they had to take care of the terrorists in Boso, and then from Boso to Difa, before moving into Damasak. We agreed, okay, move into Damasak, we'll meet at a point and form a joint task force. And we agreed that the nation that brings the highest number of personnel will lead that joint operations. That's what we've agreed. And we hope that will work out. Like I said earlier, we have liaison officers on both sides. So whatever is happening, we know ahead. I still exchange text and email messages with my counterparts in those countries. Even this morning, any information I have, I send over to them for them to be aware of what is going on. Thank you very much.
Ambassador.
Thank you both for coming to Washington to talk to us. I know the area you're talking about quite well, perhaps better from the Cameroon side than from the Nigerian side. I know the western part of northern Nigeria better. The last time I was in Abuja, we were talking about this problem. There was a big desire to have a whole lot more ISR from using various things, both UAVs and low-flying airplanes. I know you have security requirements, but most of the sending nations end up publishing or talking to their parliaments about what they're sending to Nigeria. And there's still, I think a lot more things have arrived since I was last there about 18 months ago. But it seems you're still having, in spite of the fact that this is not a heavily treed area, you still seem to be having a huge amount of difficulty finding Boko Haram, whether the girls from Chibok or the fighters from Boko Haram. I'm just wondering if you don't have enough air assets, you need different kinds of air assets. They're not performing the way you want them. But what you're seeing from above, are you confident, both on an intel and an operational level, that you have enough knowledge of where they are and what they're doing now to be able to really take them on?
I think the situation is not whether we have ISR. The ISR is what we have as some aircrafts that fly over the area to carry out surveillance, especially when we get intelligence that, oh, these people are moving, so they go to more say reconfirm what we've gotten before our men can move on. And sometimes we get information they are moving this direction. There's a lot of decoy movement here and there. But from the Americans or from the international community that are helping us with the ISR, which are outside Nigeria, they fly all over these areas. And that's where my problem comes in. If there is a linkage that from what you are saying from your ISR, we are going to see real time, it will help us a lot. But there's nothing of that nature. It is a day after that, 24 hours after that, that we get information, oh, this is what we saw. That is the problem. If it's possible to integrate what your ISR with our system, for us to see exactly what you are doing or what you are seeing from your ISR, we'll be able to take action. I think I would prefer it that way than waiting 24 hours. 24 hours is too late for such operations. Because you say you know Borno State very well. Most of these guys don't pass through the main roads. They take bush paths with their bicycles, and some of them trek. You cannot be on the main road and see somebody right inside the bush, and then you start pursuing, say it's a Boko Haram. It may not be. But when you see mass movement, that's when you now suspect that there are Boko Haram elements. But if you cannot provide us that real-time information and try to link up with your ISR with what we have, then it will not work out well for us.
You know, I just say from Intel side, like I said, we have to realize that terrorists have very strong networks, and they don't delay in sharing information. So it is absolutely important that all of us understand what I said, the need to share. What you have is of no use to you if you're only going to give it to me after the problem has already gone by. We need to have a situation whereby real time we are able to exchange information. And like I said, under the Regional Intelligence Fusion Unit, one of our partners are trying to put in place a secure communication system between Nigeria and all our neighbors. That's been set up as we speak. So the point is there is absolute need for us to understand that to deal with terrorism, there's no point in me trying to hold back certain intelligence that I have. Because for whatever reasons, because I recall in May last year in Paris, when we were discussing with one of our partners, there were so many restrictions put in the place of we signing to exchange information. All kinds of restrictions were put in place. If I give you this information, you shouldn't do this with that. Terrorists do not wait to share information. So why should we, the countries, wait to share? Because the enemy is always there, and the enemy does not discriminate anyway. So I think it will be helpful if, going forward, we all understand and embrace the need to share intel as we have it, and not put it under all kinds of restrictions on what to do with it and not what to do with it. In my language, we say that if you see a snake in the room, whether it is killed by the man or the woman, it doesn't matter, as long as the snake is killed. Thank you.
A quick question over here, gentlemen. Please wait for the microphone. And kindly identify yourself as well.
Yeah, thanks, sir. My name is Franklin Ekechukwu. I'm the National Coordinator for Diaspora Campaign Network and former Director of Nigerian Diaspora also. As a diasporian, as a Nigerian, a proud Nigerian, as a matter of fact, some of the negative effect or negative report that comes from the media here in the Western world is that Nigerians military or Nigerians that are fighting the Boko Haram, specifically also that the government of Goodluck Jonathan is somehow corrupt. That is the reason why the war on terrorism is not being won. So I'm very proud to have you here, two of you here, to at least tell the real story. My question is, what part does corruption play in Nigerian military not combating the terrorism? Thank you.
Well, I think the way you've put it, it's difficult to address. Because you have put it in absolute terms. But I made a point with my colleagues when we were outside there. I say this, and it's what all Nigerians must understand. Armies don't go to war. Nations do. So when you hear America is in Afghanistan, of course it's American forces that are in Afghanistan. But they will say America, which means it's the nation that goes to war. What does that imply? It means when a nation goes to war, all elements of national power are deployed to win the war. That includes the media, the populace, the private sector, everybody putting all they have to prosecute the war. The army is only one part, even though they are the arrowhead of the campaign, but they are just one part of it. But back home in Nigeria, we all expect the Nigerian army to go there, win the war, and come back home. While we fold our arms and, at best, even criticize them. So first and foremost, as far as this insurgency is concerned, we must all have to accept that all of us have one thing or the other to help in prosecuting the insurgency. So when you now talk about corruption, then it also means that that word has to apply to all of those elements. So rather than focus on just one aspect of it and blame them for what they're doing. Whereas we sleep in Abuja, in Lagos, in Enugu, in Port Harcourt. These guys are out there being shot, being killed, being maimed. For who? For the nation. So let us first of all agree that this insurgency is not the job of the Nigerian military alone, but that of the entire populace, including the political class, the economic elite, all of us, the media, that has not been helpful. I've had cause to complain, sometimes mid-last year, the kind of rock star imagery that our media was giving to Boko Haram. It was as if they were applauding their exploits, not understanding the challenges which my colleague alluded to. So when we are discussing these issues of national security, let us understand it is the duty and responsibility of every Nigerian, wherever you are. So it's not a question of you go there, win the war, and come back home. It's a question of this is what I have to assist you to accomplish the task. So that's what is missing in the narrative as at now. And particularly, I'm happy you are in the diaspora. The kind of things that the diaspora are writing, I would say they have an helicopter view of what is happening in Nigeria. We are on the ground. I'm the one that is waking up 2 a.m. that a movement has taken place in some places. You are here in the cozy environment that you are in, and then you write all the things you are writing, but please link with us, engage with Nigerians on the ground. Then we have a greater perception of what is there, what we need to do, because Nigeria belongs to all of us. Nigeria will never belong to a few people. It's all of us that can and must work to secure and provide stability for our country.
Siobhan? Sure. Could you wait for the...
Sorry, thank you. Sorry if I'm one of those members of the media who's in cozy Washington writing about Nigeria. Good Luck Jonathan has faced a lot of criticism for not responding quickly enough, and it's kind of jaw-dropping to hear that in the past 3 weeks alone, you've reclaimed 10 of 14 local governments. Can you respond at all to allegations that this might just be a political strategy prior to the election for him to look good before he goes up against Buhari, finally taking a stance when really this problem has been going on for 5 years?
Thank you. You say you work for a media house?
Foreign Policy Magazine.
Foreign Policy Magazine. Would you agree to send your correspondent in Nigeria?
I've asked, my editor won't send me.
Because like my colleague said, first, you want to have an election. Election can only take place in a secure environment where you go to the queue, you cast your ballot, and you go home. But when you have a situation where if it's not going to happen, but if for any conceivable reason, unfortunately, we are talking of real life, we could not experiment, for us to just pull out the entire Nigerian forces from Northeast today, in 6 hours, you will not have notice of Nigeria, if it were possible. So when we are having an election, and you are going to endanger the lives of the electorate, what then is the purpose of the election? If you know for certain that without the presence of the military to secure the environment for the election, you are going to have the challenges that we're talking about, what will you do? It is, like I said just earlier, it is necessary for us to rise beyond partisan politics when we are discussing national security. National security is not the preserve of party A, B, or C. National security has to do with, after the election, what happens? The election is just it's not the end of the process. It's just a part of the process. But we seem to focus more on the election. And therefore, the suggestion that this was done because, and my colleague said, and I will advise you, ma'am, if you could get the statement issued by NDI and IRI, who were on ground in Nigeria, they are both Washington-based institutions. They had their men on ground. They issued a joint statement which corroborated the need for the action that was taken. These are two American institutions. So if that is their own conclusion, then it will contradict what you have just said. Because the reality is that what was on ground as at the time that decision was taken, and I did say in my presentation, that decision was taken within the confines of the Constitution of Nigeria. Nothing had been done to subvert or sabotage the Constitution of Nigeria. Nothing. And by the way, for those of you who have been to Nigeria, in 2011, we started voting. I was in Kaduna on that date, observing the election. We already started voting when the election was cancelled. I don't know if you recall. We do not want that again. So why rush to conduct an election when as much as 35% of the electorate will not participate? Now, between 3 weeks and today, more than 10 million Nigerians have collected their cards to vote, which means if we had done this on that date, those 10 million Nigerians will not be party to the government that is going to place. Is that what you want?
My question was less about why you postponed the election and more about why, if this military operation has only taken 3 weeks to reclaim 10 of 14 local governments, why it took you 5 years to launch that military action when it could have been launched years ago.
My colleague has already tried to allude to that. You don't fight elections with bows and arrows in the 21st century. We needed platforms. We needed equipment. We approached our friends. Our friends were not forthcoming. We went elsewhere. We got equipment. We are where we are today. And that is the summary of the whole thing.
Thank you. Mr. Ambassador, since you brought up the IRI and NDI report, I think it's only appropriate to give a word to Ambassador George Moose, who led the delegation that wrote that report.
Thank you very much, Peter, and with all due respect, Ambassador. I think if you look very closely at this statement, and I refer to my colleague Pauline Baker, who is also here today, there is nothing in that statement that suggests or implies that there is justification for the postponement of the elections on security grounds. What we acknowledged was what everybody knows, is that there is a security problem in the Northeast. What we recommended was that every effort be made to register and allow those people who could vote from the Northeast to do so. We were not the only ones to make that recommendation. But you will find nothing in that statement that justified a postponement of the elections on security grounds. On the contrary, I think you will find in the statements that have been made since then are a reflection of a concern that the postponement could actually increase the risks of misunderstanding about the reasons for the postponement, and therefore increase the risks of violence both before, during, and after the elections. Thank you.
Maybe, sorry, let me just
Can I
quickly,
touch up?
yes, the issue of the risks, the issue is simple. When the election was postponed, we know the kind of analysis that was made by international friends, that there will be so much protests and violence. What did we see on the 15th of February? What? There was not a single violence as a result of the postponement, because it was the decision taken by INEC after Professor Jega had a meeting with the 36 electoral commissioners nationwide. So it was their call to look at what was on ground and what was possible. And I raised a poster earlier. Will we have gone to an election when 35%? We're not talking of voter turnout. We are talking of the fact that I have not been given the tool to actualize my constitutional right to participate in choosing my leaders. And so the 10 million Nigerians that have now gotten their PVCs, what will you say to them? How will they accept the outcome of the elections when, due to no fault of theirs, they were not able? Even as we speak today, many Nigerians are still asking, where is my PVC? Even as we speak today. And only last weekend, the candidates were tried 3 weeks after. So let us put this in context. The election was postponed a week too. So we are not shopping for justifications here. That is not the idea of this discussion. The idea is what happened, what will have happened, and why we needed to take the actions that was taken. The issue which, unfortunately for the federal government, if INEC failed, the people will say federal government has failed. Nobody will say somebody else has failed. If INEC succeeds, they say INEC has succeeded. They will exclude the federal government. So it was necessary that the government, the primary purpose of any government on the face of this earth is security and well-being of its citizenry. And therefore, the federal government had a duty to ensure that when people go out to vote, they are secure. If that cannot be guaranteed, should we then go ahead just because we want to fulfill certain constitutional rights? I do not think a government that wants to provide well-being and security of its people has to make a call. And like my colleague said at the Council of State meeting, it was INEC that after that meeting went to look at its own. It was obvious that there were issues. And I want to be convinced here that the 10 million Nigerians who now have their cards to vote could be justifiably excluded from the process just because a date had been fixed. And I also tried to point out, even the shift that we're talking about, it was within the constitutional provisions of Nigeria. And that's not the first time it will happen. On 2nd of April 2011, elections that have started, not even proposed, have started, was shifted by a week to allow for logistic issues to be resolved. We could have also argued in 2011 that don't matter, carry on. Should we have said that? Because we have to think at every point in time the consequences of our actions. If the action we are taking will create more risks, it is better to make a call to mitigate the risk than wait to deal with the risks afterwards. And that was why Jega himself, on 2nd of April 2011, shifted an election that had started. And we all welcomed it because it will allow that institution to fix the problems. Just as I've said in my presentation, these 3 weeks that we have talked about, look at what has happened. more more PVCs have been issued. The card reader machine has been tested. Training of election staff is going on. All these were not there before February 14. So what will have happened? So I don't think we should dwell more on it is right, it is wrong. It is what works for the greater good of Nigerians. The federal government of Nigeria is only interested in working for the good of majority of Nigerians rather than pander to certain vested interests to say, let's do this because we must say we must do it. That's not the way to go forward. The way to go forward is that we all have, and I'm happy many Nigerians are here. What the international community needs to know is this. Nigerians have decided with one voice that never again will we have a government that's not constitutional. Never again shall we have a military or any contraption of that description. So this democracy is for Nigerians who have lived through protracted military governments and who have said, no, our rights, our freedom cannot be compromised or negotiated because of any other thing. So Nigerians are the ones who need this democracy more than the international community. I have lived my adult life under a military government. At my age, I've only voted once in my entire life. I want my kids to enjoy full freedom and be able to participate in the affairs of their country without any condition because they are Nigerians. And so whatever we do, don't let us dwell on those things that we do not want to go back to. This democracy in Nigeria will, must, and will certainly survive. Because that's not what I want, it's what Nigerians want. Nigerians have said never again to go back to a situation whereby they cannot cast their votes. And we are discussing here and trying to even accept that it is good enough for 65% of Nigerians to be allowed to vote and 35%. That 35% in the whole of Africa, fewer countries have that population of 10 million. So it's like asking the whole country not to vote. It's not going to happen. This election we hold, as it is, as I said, 80% collection as we speak, which wasn't there 3 weeks ago. Isn't that something we should applaud? So I don't think we should go back to revisionist arguments. Why X? Because of that's not the case. The security situation has improved, has been demonstrated here. And by the grace of God, before March 28, the entire northeast of Nigeria will have been totally liberated so that people can go about to do their. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Admiral Okoi, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to say something. Maybe start with somebody who talked about the military being corrupt. It is the same military that went to Liberia and Sierra Leone and saved the situation there. That time the military was not corrupt. Now we are facing problems within our country. And we begged. We're almost on our knees begging people to help us, to give us platforms they did not give us. The only option we had was to go through third parties. I can remember vividly in 1997, I was working in naval headquarters. I requested for arms during Abacha's regime. And there was these sanctions. After 3 months, one contractor came to my office and said, gave me a list and said, I should pick. I said, pick from what? He said, you have a list. In fact, I drove out of my office. The next minute, my chief of naval staff called me and said, what's your problem? I said, this is not what I asked for. He said, oh, you did not ask for this. Where are you going to get the ones you are asking for? That a contract has been given to somebody, throw a third party and is bringing these things in, better pick what you can use. Now, if you don't sell us your items and go to a third party, what is going to be the result? Inflated contracts or inflated costs, if I may put it that way. And you blame me and you say I'm corrupt, please, you need to think about this. Now, back to the election issue. I said earlier, I'm not a politician and I don't intend to be one. I'm a professional military personnel. I was in that meeting when Jega made his presentation and we made our presentations. But I tell you, Jega was not ready. We're only used as scapegoats. Because the only thing we could have done was to say, okay, the 3 states should be exonerated from the elections. But we'll now go back to constitutional provisions. What will happen? Will the result be accepted by both PDP and APC and other parties if those 3 states were excused from elections? What would have been the result? And we decided to take the blame. Yes, say the military did not liberate those 3 states, or is not control of those 3 states. We took it. But my colleague has said it. Up till now, as I'm talking to you, one thing that you've not even addressed here is the card readers. INEC said that if a card reader in a polling booth, a card reader goes faulty, the elections that day will be postponed till the next day. It's still on record. Nobody is talking about it, which means the elections of 28th March may never be conclusive on that day until the next day, when they may be able to get card readers complete to take care of those places that were faulty. Those are the things we should be looking at. I just hope that INEC will be able to take care of itself, clean its house, and be able to get more card readers. I personally recommended that there should be 2 card readers in each polling booth, so that you don't have any excuse to say, oh, this card reader is bad, let's move till the next day. But INEC is not ready. So please, we've taken the blame for what happened, but we took it for the interest of the country. Thank you.
We're running short on time, so let me take a group of questions together. Pauline and Lauren, and then Sarah.
I was also on that delegation with Ambassador Moose to Nigeria, and I want to also affirm that there was nothing in that report that endorsed the postponement of the elections, although there was mention of issues that were outstanding. Also, I would say, for those who are interested in pursuing this question further, to read Professor Jega's statement on the decision to postpone the elections. He was very clear that even though there were still issues and work to be done, and you detailed the benefits that came out of the postponement, he felt he could proceed, and the defining issue was that the military had said that they wanted to complete their military operations first, and they could not guarantee the safety of the workers. So for the record, I think we should be very clear about that. My question, however, is on something else, and that is the reference that you had made to the Pledge of Allegiance that Boko Haram made to ISIS. What is your reading of the meaning of this? There's some debate in this country about, on the one side, that it's a public relations act, it's an act of desperation. Others say it's a prelude to something that we should worry about. And are you concerned that, given the success that you've had militarily on the ground, that Boko Haram may, like ISIS, start seeking foreign fighters, to come in to help and therefore spread the insurgency even more? What might be their reaction to your military success other than the activation of sleeper cells?
Okay, and Lauren.
Thank you. Lauren Plock-Blanchard with the Congressional Research Service. You have described a pretty tremendous turnaround in terms of pushing back Boko Haram's advance of territory over the last 7 months. I'm curious, acknowledging that the retaking of territory, is it your assessment that in 2.5 weeks you will be able to ensure security for the polls, particularly in Borno State? I mean, whether or not Boko Haram holds a town or not, they still are very clearly conducting IEDs and suicide bombings really on a daily, multiple times a day right now. And I'm a little skeptical about the notion that the military advance is going to significantly change the security for people to be able to vote in 2.5 weeks. So I'd be interested in your assessment. And also, as a follow-on question, you mentioned earlier the training that was canceled for the 143rd Battalion late last year, and you linked that to the discussions about equipment transfers. I assume you were referring to the Cobra helicopters. I'm not quite sure I understand the connection between the Cobra helicopters and the 143rd Battalion. You're talking about equipment for the 143rd Battalion. It was my understanding that that equipment was to be provided by your government. You are a fairly large economy with a very sizable defense budget. I'm curious why the continued training of that was contingent on U.S. provided equipment. We do have a lot of pride in our equipment, but we also have a lot of pride in American military training. So curious about why that was determined not to be needed.
Okay. And fourth row, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. My name is Sarah Prey. I work for the Open Society Foundations. I had a question similar along the lines to what Lauren just asked, but Rear Admiral, it was in reference to your comment about the Leahy Law, where you said that this is getting in the way. I'm wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail as to why the Leahy Law is a problem. We heard from Secretary Kerry recently that the Leahy Law has not impinged our security relationship with Nigeria. Indeed, we do have a robust $5 million security assistance package, and as Lauren mentioned, there's $5 billion on the Nigerian side of things. So again, why is that a problem? Especially, I think, as I understand it, we have vetted 187 military units and 173 police units. So it seems like that's a lot. So I'm wondering if you could address that. And indeed, if we do take what you said at face value, that Leahy is a problem, as you know, it's not a permanent problem, that all it asks is that there are steps to remediate the human rights abuses. So if Leahy indeed is getting in the way, then what is the Nigerian security response to that? What kinds of accountability measures are you going to take to ensure that Leahy is not a problem in the future?
Okay, so if I can try to wrap, I guess I think logically the question would be perhaps first to the Admiral on the equipment issues that you raise, and then perhaps linking that to the question of Leahy, and then whether we can we will have security complete in Borno by 28th March, and the measure necessary, and then perhaps we'll wrap up with the question about the so-called Islamic State. So, Admiral.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll first start with the protection of citizens during the elections. The decision that has been taken is this. Anytime we liberate, the police and what we call the civil defense will come in and maintain security within those towns while the military move ahead. So we are sure that the military will move out of Maiduguri and Borno states and clear those areas. The policemen will come in and take care of civil protection. So we are very sure that we'll protect the citizens that are going to vote and those election officials who are going to those states to conduct elections. On the equipment, the Cobra helicopters have got nothing to do with the training of the battalion. That is certain. What we are saying is this. It was not only helicopters we were looking for. We were looking for APCs and other equipment or platforms.
But you're getting APCs from the United States.
From who?
You're getting MRAPs from the United States. 26 of them, I believe.
When?
Well, as soon as you send your ship to pick them up.
After a year or 2 years? That's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. When we needed these things, you never came up. We had to shout before you acted. That is the problem. See, Americans are my friends.
Ambassadors.
I think you were told that I served you as naval attaché. And let me tell you one thing. I got a national honors when I left this country from America. I knew what I did when I was here. I understand the system very well. And that is why I decided on my own to host them in my facility. Every Friday, I sit down with them discussing these issues with them. But my problem is, why can't you give me this information or this intelligence real time? That's my problem. Don't give me 24 hours after you've seen it. 24, just give me real time. And if I don't take any action, then you can hold me responsible. It's as simple as that. See, the military, we understand ourselves. But it's you politicians that don't understand what we are talking about. Unfortunately, we understand ourselves. The military, I think, I'm not talking for them now, I think they'll be ready to do that. But there are certain things holding them back. So please, check yourselves. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I think when it comes to the statement I referred to of the IRI and NDI, please understand, we are not shopping for justification. The only thing I said is this. Read the statement. The IRI and NDI were on ground. And by the way, they were not the only institution that issued statements. ECOWAS issued a statement. Other organizations issue statements. But what I was just trying to say is that these two institutions were on ground and there is issues. Those issues were valid reasons. No, there were issues which we all knew. But to the extent that the two institutions acknowledged it, has got nothing. I was sure in the Council of State meeting, there was no reference to NDI or IRI or any organization for that matter. But just, and there's nothing to be ashamed about when you state facts. You can leave analysis to those who want to deal with it, but the fact is, as stated in the statement of the IRI and NDI, that these issues that we are talking about, they saw that they were there. Is it true or not that only 65% of Nigerians of electorate received PVC card? The answer is yes. Is it true that 35% will have been denied? Yes. Just state the facts, and that's what we are stating. We are not making an analysis of whether somebody will be happy, somebody will be happy. Facts speak for themselves. We can spin it the way we want, but it does not remove the fact that as of that date, this institution was not ready. And between that 3 weeks and now, we can also see what we have achieved. Is it good? Yes. Do we need it? Absolutely. So let's just restrict ourselves to the facts. With regard to Boko Haram and ISIS, now, it's been suggested that, like I said, as at today, it's a propaganda boost, full stop. But when you deal with terrorist organizations, never ever underrate their intentions. Never ever. Even if it looks innocuous, even if it looks inconsequential, never ever underrate what they are planning to do and who they are meeting. Now, from what we said, what was the motivation for Shekau to pledge allegiance? There's so many reasons. First, Boko Haram is on the receiving end. They need to have this kind of allegiance so that they can be seen to be belonging. Like I said, they want to obtain a global terror franchise. Like I also said, ISIS today is the wealthiest extremist group in the world. They have access to crude oil. They have money. And Boko Haram will need money. So we must go beyond their motivation. Because before now, Boko Haram, we've done our link analysis between Boko Haram and Al-Qaeda because they fought together in northern Mali. We have clear intelligence on that. Now, if Boko Haram is moving beyond Al-Qaeda now to ISIS, it should be of interest to us, to the international community, to interrogate that and deal with it before we see something bigger. But even as we speak, we've also established that, from our link analysis, that there is a connection already in place between Boko Haram and ISIS. But we are not going to wait until it blossoms or until it matures before we start to try to understand it. So, yes, we can adduce so many reasons for it, but we have to go beyond that. This is the declaration by Boko Haram, and we have to deal with it as it should be seriously, rather than just dismiss it only to come around to say that we've made some intelligence errors. So we are taking that seriously, and I think the international community must also do so. Because, just like my colleague said, last year I went to Cameroon to Chad, to Niger Republic, to meet my colleague to say, hey, this Boko Haram thing, let's deal with it together. I said, no, sorry, it's your problem. But now, we are all wiser. So the same approach, we should not take whatever Boko Haram does regarding ISIS, we should not take it lightly. About securing elections. Now, like my colleague said, he mentioned sleeper cells. But what we are saying is this. As at before March 28, no territory of Nigeria will be under the sovereignty or control of Boko Haram. None. Whereas 3 weeks back, they were in full control of some of these villages and territories. Now, for election itself, like I said again, it is not an activity that you say you look after. It is what even the populace, the community themselves, have to ensure that they do their own part and in a secure environment. So yes, security will be provided for the elections. But that's not to say, like my colleague said, some misguided girls will be sent to do what happened yesterday. We cannot, there's no part of this planet that can say there will not be terrorist attack. I cannot tell you that there will be. But we will do all that is necessary to ensure that we secure the election. That is guaranteed, and that is what the security forces are doing. In terms of, we cannot, so I won't tell you there will not be explosion in Maiduguri tomorrow. I cannot. I don't have the means, and nobody can. But we have to make sure that what we are doing to guarantee that lives and properties are secure to be able to do this activity that will take place. Now, to the issue of assistance or no assistance between U.S. and Nigeria, let me just say this. I think 3 weeks ago, I was in the State Department with my colleague, and we had a discussion with a very senior official there. And after we argued back and forth, we agreed on one thing. We have agreed to disagree on this matter. I think that's about Leahy Law. I think you've dealt with that. Yeah.
Okay. Just to tie everything together, and I apologize, we've already run. Right. The question, I think there was a second part of the question posed by Dr. Baker was, what are you seeing, or what are your concerns about the possibility of internationalization, foreign fighters? Are you seeing any evidence of this? Are you concerned about it?
Well, for now, we have evidence of Tuaregs. First, let me just go back a little bit. Southern Libya, as we speak today, there is no governance in Southern Libya. Southern Libya is in the hands of militants, of tribal warlords. Let me use that description. And they are in charge of the huge cache of arms that late Nigeria have. So they are selling all of that. So we've seen a few of them, which I would think they are basically Tuaregs, like I just said, from northern Mali, coming into the theater in Nigeria. But that's why we need to take this allegiance thing seriously. Now that a formal request has been made, and I don't know if you recall, some few years back, Yemen did the same thing before, the Al-Qaeda did the same thing before to ISIS, before they were replanted about 4 weeks. The fact that that move has been made opens all kinds of possibilities as to internationalizing or externalizing or globalizing what is happening in northeast of Nigeria. So the fact that that move has been made, we have to assume that foreign fighters may find their way to that theater. And like we must understand, when this is started in northern Mali, and the international community with France, we dealt with it. We did not know where next they will go. What do terrorists want? They just want a space of land to call their own and do whatever they liked. Today, they are operational in Nigeria. Where they will move next, I don't know, because certainly we will expunge them for our territory. Where they head next, I don't know, but they will go somewhere. And that we must understand. So where, I don't know where it is. So when you talk of foreign fighters, I mean, last year at the UN Security Council, President Obama chaired a meeting where we agreed that we have to deal with this issue of foreign terrorist fighters. The need for all of us to work together to make sure that they are not allowed. So we are already thinking the fact that that move has been made, that opens the door for such, and therefore we already put in place intel network to deal with that. And Nigeria will fully cooperate with the UN in ensuring that foreign terrorist fighters are dealt with and even prevented from coming to our territory. So I think, again, I will emphasize the need for us as international community to share intelligence so that we can deal with this. If we fail to do that, we only have all ourselves to blame.
Thank you very much. And we have run well over time and events here, so please join me in thanking Ambassador Oke and Admiral Okoi.